like this generation is like becoming more like involved in like what's happening around them. So they're like more active, they're becoming more educated, and they're just like putting in their 2 cents into what they've been learning about climate change and politicians, and trying to get people to be more like active in all this so they can help out the environment and help out the future generations who are going to have to deal with everything that's been happening. So,
I don't really remember who said it, but I agree with whoever said like we should help rid the earth of pollution and stuff for like our younger siblings and stuff. It's like they can't even really like they as a separate generation, if they're a different generation, like they as younger kids should know now so that they can also participate in helping so that when we when us in the future have kids and stuff, so their air can be cleaner, their water can be cleaner, they can they don't have to worry about stuff like climate change, you know? Does anyone have anything else to say before we conclude this?
Um, I think overall, like with marine life, of course you should care and be educated about the environment, but also I think there should be change in the attitudes. Like it should be like, oh, it's not gonna affect me. It doesn't really affect me. I shouldn't do anything. But what if it affects one person, but then what's happening to the other person affects you? Like it may not be a direct effect, but then it's kind of like a chain of dominoes. Like it goes off the butterfly effect. So there should be definitely like more thoughts about how it might affect you. Like nothing in life is certain, and you don't know if you actually get flooded or maybe our oceans get so polluted like we literally have to budget or like you have to depend on imports to get seafood or anything like that. So there's that too.
No, yeah, definitely. We need to get people out of the mindset where they're like, oh, it's not going to affect me directly, but more like think about it like it'll eventually end up like affecting you. Like maybe it won't now, maybe it won't like a couple years, but it will at one point. So it's good to like educate people on it.
this is kind of not related, but it is in a way. I just wanted to bring up like the overfishing that's has been happening, and like all the excess like fishy, not fishing, what's the word? Like the fish nets that get thrown and end up getting stuck on whales, and you always see that happening. And sometimes I remember one time a long time ago when I went to San Francisco and ended up seeing a seal with like a fishing line tied like right around its neck. Like you could see it like cutting into the skin, which was sad. But I just think that overfishing in general can also like negatively affect the environment as long as just like overfishing and like pollution and all that.
I agree with what you said, and I also think that like the whale hunting and stuff. You know, you see people shooting like harpoons and stuff at whales that like obviously kill them, but like I think that needs to stop because like what's the point? Like they don't use the whale for anything. They just hunt the whale for no reason, just to like have an animal in their possession that they don't need. They don't use it for anything except to, the thrill of hunting.
Yeah, that reminds me of something I read when I was like younger. It was about like this soup that people used to eat where it was basically just like shark fins where they would like get the shark and they would just take the fins off and I think that's all they use. Like that's it. And they left the shark like that's it. Like they just took its fins and they didn't use the rest of it. And I just remember seeing that and thinking like why would they do that? Like I get that it's a food, but it was also considered like a delicacy or something. So it's like there's no there's not really a point to it. It's just that people wanted that specific part of it. But then I thought how it was sad that they just took that part and left the rest of the shark to just die.
Yeah, speaking of shark fin soup, I'm actually like part Chinese and like, it's common like at least in southern China and such. It's kind of like part of my culture and I definitely see why people will want it because of the tradition and like the traditional sentiment behind it. But at the same time, sometimes like some things you just have to let go because I think like with the shark fins, it's become unsustainable, especially if we don't use the other parts. Like you can't just like leave one part and just like leave the rest to die. You can't just like take the fins off and then just leave the shark in the ocean to die. It's not how it should work.
Yeah, like I understood that it was part of a tradition, but I thought how like it was kind of sad. And like sometimes some traditions are meant to be broken. Like we don't need all of them because not every culture is like perfect and things like that. So we all have our flaws and things. Like I know my culture isn't perfect. Like I know there's things that we definitely need to change. And so I was just thinking how like maybe because I know that maybe younger generations will like think it's okay to change it. Like we don't need it, but it'll be harder to get to like the older generations.
Yeah, especially in like cultures like mine, like being Vietnamese and Chinese, they're a lot more like traditional. So I feel like it's a lot harder to get to them. But I feel like if you actually show the direct effects, like you said, or like you guys said earlier, maybe it'd be easy to like get rid of things like shark fin soup. I mean, in China, they used to foot binding used to be legal, so there's some perspective there.
I think that is where we should conclude this meeting. Does anyone have any last minute things to say? No? Okay. So that was our SDG Group 14 Life Underwater. Before we end this meeting, does anyone know how to access the recordings for Zoom?